Namaste everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective offered by Binduji. We are on chapter 4. If you would like to catch up on the talks, they are available as replays in Clubhouse. Alternatively, I've shared 3 links in the chat. One is a YouTube channel called Advaita Retold where they are well cataloged. And you can catch up not just on Bhagavad Gita, but Aparokshanubhuti, which was conducted earlier, and then Upanishads. You have all the series available on. And you'll find the same thing in the Apple Podcast and Spotify as different platforms. There is also a book penned by Artemisia, the titled Imaginary Door, which is a condensed interpretation of Advaita from Binduji's perspective. I'll close the chat and hand raising when Binduji is conducting the session class, after which we'll open up the channels for question and answers. As always, thank you, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and Hari Om to all of you. My invocations. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kuratrubhyo Vamsharishibhyo Mhadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyapta Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutah Stunvanti Divyaistavai Vedai Sangapadakramo Parishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam Nabidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaiva Tena Gandavyam Brahma Karma Samadhinaha. So we saw this verse broken up into words and the meanings. There is some deeper reading from Shankara's point of view, which also is worth going through. It may not be in the Bhashya as such, but derived from the readings of the Bhashya. One is he is applying the Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma to the Yajna principle, which is mentioned as a Brahma Yajna. The Gita's application of Chandogya Upanishad Mahavakya, Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma, it's on the all this is indeed Brahman. Specifically to the domain of this Yajna, which we saw yesterday. What is that Yajna? Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavihi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam. And all those 6 Brahma identification. The Chandogya Upanishad declares the non-duality totally of Brahman in abstract terms. And it is the same what the 24th verse declares it as concretely in terms of the specific structure of action and offering. When you say Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, it is indicating that everything is Brahma. But this verse not only acknowledges the aspect of Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, but also bring the specific structure of karma or yajna into the ambit of that Brahma, making it not a metaphysical proposition but a lived recognition operative in every action, every moment and every turn of our life. We are never away from Brahma Karma Samadhina. We are never away from doing from a Brahma Yajna. Even though all the time, every moment we are doing the Brahma Yajna, due to the ignorance, we do not know we are doing it. To remind us that Mama Vartma Anuvartante Manushya Partha Sarvataha, that statement is exactly what is being replicated here. It is all paths are my path. All actions are my actions. All offerings are into me. And all offerings are nothing but me offering myself into me. That is the statement of Mama Vartma Anuvartante Manushya Partha Sarvataha. That from the point of view as Brahman is being that Brahma Arpanam, the instrument of action is Brahman. Havis, which is a material of action, that is Brahman. The Agni, the medium or the field into which action is taking place, that is Brahman. Brahmana means the agent of action is also Brahman. There is nobody other than Brahman. Kutam, the Havana Kriya or the act of offering itself. The act itself is Brahman. And the destination, Gandhavyam, that is also Brahman. This exhaustive identification leaves no non-Brahman element in the field of action. That is why precisely Sarvam Khalidam Brahma is now being applied into action or karma. Then there is this yajna framework as an Advaitic pedagogical device. Shankaracharya notes that the verse's use of the framework of Vedic yajna, all terms and terminologies of the Vedic yajna was used in this particular verse. So it has been used as a vehicle for conveying the non-dual declaration of Advaita, which in itself is a pedagogical masterstroke by Krishna, explained by none other than Shankaracharya. Therefore, the Vedic yajna is the most structurally explicit form of action in those days. It is not different today, but we don't call it as Vedic yajna. But when you look at from the Brahma Karma Samadhinaha, it is not different. That is why this verse is so important. In the Vedic yajna, its elements like Arpana, Havis, Agni, Hota, Huta are well defined in the Nirukta and is universally known in the Shastra educated audience, those who are having the Vedic background. Krishna, by taking this most explicitly structured action of the yajna of the Veda and demonstrating that very element in the Vedic Yajna is nothing other than Brahman. The verse implicitly argues, if even this highly structured, explicitly dual seeming action is entirely Brahman, then what to say about the other things? All the more, every action whatsoever, not only the Vedic ones, even the Laukika ones, whatsoever is Brahman. The Brahma Yajna recognition is universally applicable to all actions without exception. Swapan, Jigran, all those things which will come, eating, breathing, sleeping, thinking, anything which you say, there is nothing other than Brahman. Looking into that, the previous verse where Yajnaya Archata, acting as Yajna, is now being specified that every act seen through the eyes of Brahma Karma Samadhi is this Brahma Yajna, in which the Arpana, Havis, Agni, Hota, Huta, etc., the instrument, the material, field, the act, the agent, all are Brahman. Then when it says that Brahmana Hutam, the dissolution of the offerer, the agent, becomes the Advaitic key in realization or realizing that I am Aham Brahmasmi. Shankaracharya identifies the Brahmana Hutam offered by Brahman as the key to Advaita of this verse. The ordinary yajna preserves the duality of the offerer and the fire. The doer and where it is being offered. Even if the oblation is mentally offered to Brahman as the fire, even in that yajna, Vedic yajna, there is a mental offering, Manasa yajna. Even that is, even if somebody considers as a Brahman, there is still the dichotomy of the offerer and the fire in which it is being offered. The Yajamana, the offerer, remains distinct as an agent. But when the offerer is identified as Brahman itself, Brahmana, the instrumental case of the agency, by the Brahman, even the last structural duality of Yajna collapses. This is the direct application of the Mahavakya to the agent, which makes it Aham Brahmasmi applied to Yajna context. The Yajamana is Brahman, becomes the Aham Brahmasmi. When this recognition is stable, which is called the Jnana Vastita Chetasa of the previous verse, the agent offerer does not offer. Brahman offering into Brahman, no. And the apparent karma of offering dissolves completely. There is no offerer, there is no offering, there is no difference between any. So all these things dissolves completely. Samagram praviliyate. So the karma itself, seen as an activity externally from the internal realization of the Jivan Mukta, there is no action. Karma samagram praviliyate, the previous verse. Therefore he becomes akarta. He has no doership. But from the point of view of others, he is engaged in action. This is why Krishna said that Nanam aptavam aptavyam varta eva cha karmani trishu lokeshu kinchana. That is a jnana, what you call a Jivan Mukta's aparoksha anubhuti, or the immediate recognition. The identification Brahmana Hutam is thus the operative mechanism of karma samagra pravilana. When the agent is recognized as Brahman, there is no karta, no doer left whose action could bind. Namam karmani limpanti. In the 14th verse, we studied that. That is what it is, that there is no karma left to stain him or to touch him. That is here explained in its deepest level when it is said that Brahman as the karta means no finite karma, no finite karta, no karma lepa. Therefore, karma samagram praviliyate. That total dissolution of the action or the activity or the doer and the doing, everything is dissolved. Therefore, Brahma Karma Samadhi becomes the Jivan Mukta's natural state. As the natural continuous cognitive state of the Jivan Mukta. It is not an occasional meditative achievement in the Samadhi. Even though the word Samadhi is used, when it is having an adjective like Brahma, it is not an occasional meditative achievement, but the unbroken ground of all activity, the substratum or the ground of all activity, and is most important philosophical contribution in this commentary by Shankaracharya. He connects Brahma Karma Samadhi to each verse previously. The just previous verse and the 23rd, the word Jnana Avastita Chetasa. Chetas established in that Jnana means Brahma Karma Samadhi is described as from the angle of cognitive establishment. And in the 18th verse, he said, Karmani Akarmaya Pashyet. Seeing Akarma in Karma. It is the darshana, the vision that constitutes what is called the Brahma Karma Samadhi. And in the 20th verse, Krishna said, Naiva Kinchit Karoti. The Paramarthika non-acting of the Jivan Mukta. The subjective experience of Brahma Karma Samadhi that I am not doing anything. Because there is no doer and the action separate. Even if we take the Brihadaranya Upanishad's verse, Brahma eva san Brahma apyeti. Being Brahman attains Brahman. We, being Brahman, attains Brahman. There seems to be a paradox in it. How can there be an attainment when Brahman is, we are Brahman? But that is what is called the Aparokshanubhuti. The phala of Brahma Karma Samadhi, which is also said in this verse by Brahmaiva Tena Gandhavya. He has to go to Brahma. Therefore, Brahma Karma Samadhi thus is the unifying concept that ties together the entire Karma Vichara Prakarana, starting with 16 to 23. And the Yajna Prakarana, which is starting from this verse, previous verse, to the 33rd verse, it is the cognitive state that makes all karma non-binding. that dissolves all karma completely. And that recognition that all action as Brahma Yajna, it is not a theory, but a living reality where a Jivan Mukta experience karmani akarmaya pasyat. A Jivan Mukta's continuous effortless abidance in Brahman's non-duality through all activity. Pratibodha viditam. The verse has the Yajna Prakarana's philosophical foundation, because the next 8 verses are talking about yajnas. But this is the philosophical foundation for the entire Prakarana. So when yajnas are being mentioned, we should not forget this verse of Brahma Yajna, Brahma Karma Samadhina. In the 25th verse, the next verse, Krishna is talking about Daiva Yajna, Brahma Yajna. And the following verse, he is talking about Indriya Yajna. And in the 27th verse, he is talking something called Yoga Yajna. And in the 28th verse, he talks about Jnana Yajna. 29th verse, he will talk about Pranayama Yajna. And in the 30th verse, Niyata Ahara Yajna. And 28th verse again, Dravya Yajna. All are particular expression of the universal Brahma Yajna declared in this verse, 24th verse. Therefore, every Yajna, when performed with the recognition that all elements are Brahman, it is the Brahma Yajna. The multiplicity of the different Yajnas, which was mentioned earlier, is thus the diversity within the unity. From the non-dual framework of this verse, it becomes a unity. Just as the Dvaitins see many rivers where the Advaitin sees only one ocean. The culminating phase of this Prakarana, Yajna Prakarana, on the 33rd verse, Shreyan Dravyamayat Yajnat Jnana Yajnaha. The Yajna of knowledge is superior to all material Yajnas. That completes the circle of all Yajnas. Jnana Yajna is the supreme, because Jnana Yajna is precisely the recognition of Brahma Karma Samadhi. Knowing that all is Brahman, all action is Brahman, and the destination is also Brahman. With this philosophical summit of chapter 4 in this verse, Gita's Karma Yoga teaching has reached its pinnacle. The verse has accomplished what no single verse in the entire Prasthanatraya accomplishes more directly. The complete, exhaustive, structural identification of all elements of action. The entire ambit of empirical world and activities gets substituted with Brahman. Beginning with the offering instrument and ending with the destination, leaving no structural element unaddressed. The verse declares this with 6-fold Brahma repetition. There is only Brahman. The offerer is Brahman. Offering is Brahman. The fire is Brahman. Act is Brahman. Destination is Brahman. And the means of realizing this is also Brahma Karma Samadhi. It is a continuous effortless activity, compatible recognition of this non-dual truth that constitute the Jivan Mukta's experience that everything is Sarvam Khalidam Brahma. This is the resolution Gahana Karmana Gati, where Kavayobi Atra Mohita. Regarding the action, even the seers, Kavayaha, they were also deluded. But once we realize what is Brahma Karma Samadhi, the secret of the path of karma, Gahana Karmana Gati, gets resolved. The Gati of karma, followed all the way to its deepest depth, leads not to the bondage, but to Brahman. So karma cannot bind you if you know the reality of this truth. That is why the jnana is very important. The jnani who recognizes this truth through the Brahma Karma Samadhi does not merely escape the karma bandha, na nibadhyate. They discover that karma's ways was always and only Brahman's way. Mama vartma anuvartande manushya partha sarvataha. The non-dual ground that was never absent, never lost, and never truly reached, only recognized again and again in the eternal Adya, today of Parameshwara's own self-disclosure, Krishna's self-disclosure. We cannot be more grateful to Krishna for this verse. If we can imbibe and live every word of it, there is no realization better than that. There is nothing left for us to realize, because the destination is Brahman. Now we will go sentence by sentence of the Bhashya, because there's a lot of intricacies come up in the Sanskrit words in between. Also, Shankaracharya is taking the Purva Paksha opposition, or the question which challenges some statements. We will see that. Brahma arpanam yena karanena brahmabit havihi agnau arpayati tad brahma eva iti pashyati. The instrument or the ladle by which the knower of Brahman offers the oblation into the fire, he sees that as Brahman alone. Tasya atma vyadirekena abhavam pashyati. He sees that it does not exist apart from the self. Atma vyadirekena. Apart from self. Abhavam does not exist. So he sees that. Yada shuktikayam rajata bhavam pashyati. Just as one who recognizes the absence of silver in the shell, which he had confused as a silver piece, now realizes that was not silver, it is the shell, like the rope is nothing but, the snake is nothing but the rope, same way. Taduchyate Brahma eva arpanam. Therefore it is said, the ladle is Brahman. Yata tad rajadam tat shuktika eva iti. Just as what appears as silver is actually only shell. Yat arpana buddhya grihyate loke tat asya brahmavitaha brahmeva. That which is ordinarily taken as the instrument of offering by the Vaidika people, those who are practicing the Veda Yajna, for the knower of the truth, that is Brahman alone. Same way Brahma Havihi. The Havis or the oblation is Brahman. Tata yat Havir Buddhya Grihyamanam Tat Brahma Eva Asya. What is taken as oblation is Brahman alone for the knower. Brahma Agno, the fire is also Brahman. Agni Abhi Brahma Eva Atra Huyate. The fire into which the offering is being made is also Brahman. Brahmana Kartara, the offerer or the agent, is also Brahman. Brahma eva karta ityarthaha, that the doer is Brahman alone. Yat tena hutam havanakriya tat Brahma eva. The act of offering itself is Brahman. The action is also Brahman. It is not a mere material. Even the action is Brahman. Yat tena gandavyam phalam tatapi Brahma eva. And the result to be attained by this action is also Brahman. Therefore, Brahma karma samadhinaha. For one who is absorbed in the knowledge, that action itself is Brahman. His samadhi is also Brahman. Brahma eva tena gandavya. Brahman alone is to be attained. Evam lokasangraham chikurshunam api kriyamanam karma paramartata akarma. Thus, even action performed for the welfare of this world is in reality non-action. Karmani akarmaya pasyat. Brahma buddhya umarmrititvad, because it is sublated, cancelled by the knowledge of Brahman, because there is no action other than Brahman. Evam sati nivritta karmano api sarva karma sannyasinaha. Therefore, even for one who has renounced all action, even his actions are Brahma karma samadhi. Samyak darshana stutyartham yajñatva sampadanam jnanasya sutaram upapadyate. It is entirely appropriate to describe knowledge itself as a sacrifice, yajna, for the purpose of praising right knowledge. Yat arpanadi adiyatne prasiddham tat asya adhyatma brahma eva. What is known in the ritual, yajna, as instrument or offering, etc., is here in the spiritual sense, Brahma eva, Brahman alone, and for the knower. Anyatha sarvasya brahmatve arpanadinam eva visheshataha brahmatva abhidhanam anartakam syad. Otherwise, if everything is Brahman, specifying only the instrument offering, etc. as Brahman would be meaningless. Tasma, therefore, Brahma eva idam sarvam iti abhijanataha vidushaha karma abhavaha. For the knower who realizes all this is Brahman, there is absence of action. Karmani akarmaya pasit. Karaka buddhya abhavat cha. And because the notion of agent and the instruments, karaka buddhi, is absent. Nahi karaka buddhi rahitam yajnakyam karma drishtam. No ritual action or yajna is ever seen without the notion of an agent and instruments. Sarvam eva agnihotradigam karma kartarabhimana phala abhisadhitamatam drishtam. All ritual actions like Agnihotra are observed to involve doership and desire for results. Na upamridita kriyakaraka phalabeda buddhimat. They are not seen where the distinction of action, agent and results are sublated. Idam tu brahma buddhi upamridita karma. But this, the action of the knower, is one in which all such distinctions are dissolved by the knowledge of Brahman. Ataha akarma eva tat. Therefore, it is non-action. Tadacha darshitam. It was shown in the 18th, 20th, 28th verses and the 5th chapter, 8th verse. I do nothing at all. Na kinchit karomi. Tadacha darshayan kriyakaraka phalabeda buddhya upamardam karoti. Thus, Krishna repeatedly teaches the sublation of distinctions between the action, agent and result. Drishtacha kamya agnihotrādau kamopamardhanena hani. And it is observed that when the desire is removed, even the desire-driven rituals cease to be rituals. Tada karmanam karya visheshasya arambhagatvam drishtam. Actions are seen to produce results only when motivated by intention. Otherwise, actions are not actions if the intent is not there. Tada ihapi brahma cheshta matrena karmapi vidushaha akarma sampadyate. Similarly here, even though there is outward apparent activity, the knower, for the knower, it becomes non-action. Ataha uktam samagram previliyate. That is why it is said, all karma dissolves completely. Now there is the opponent's Purvapaksha's interpretation, which is rejected by Shankaracharya. It is subtle and important because it contrasts the two different ways of understanding Brahman in action. Atra kechit ahu. Here some people say, Yad Brahma tad arpanadini Brahma eva khila arpanadina panjavidena karagamatmanaha vyavastitam tad tadeva karma karoti. That which is Brahman, that itself is the instrument and other elements, etc. Indeed, Brahman alone, appearing in the fivefold form of instruments of action, agent, instrument, or bhajak, performs the action. Tatra na arpanadi buddhi nivartate. In that view, the notion of the instrument, offering, etc. are not negated. Kintu arpanadi ishu brahma buddhi abhidiyate. Rather, the idea Brahman is superimposed upon them. Tatrabi adhyasa, or Brahma adhiyate. Tada pradimadau Vishnuadi buddhi. Just as one superimposes the idea of Vishnu on a idol. Yatava namadau Brahma buddhi. So, just as one superimposes Brahman upon the name such as Om, Satyam, so this is the opponent's stand, that he is thinking that just as on an idol how the Vishnu is superimposed, or on a Shivalinga how Shiva is being superimposed, this verse is not actually about Brahman in the knowledge. It is like the Pratima. Here also, the superimposition of Brahman into the ladle, the Havis, the Agni, etc. is to be taken. Not the way Shankaracharya is saying. So Shankaracharya's refutation, Siddhanta, to the Purvapaksha, he firmly establishes it is about knowledge, Samyak Darshanam, not symbolic superimposition, not the Adhyasa or Upasana. So he says, Satyam, evam abhisyad yadi jnana yatnya stutyartam prakaranam nasyad. Satyam means true. What you said is true. That interpretation might be acceptable if the context were not intended to praise the knowledge of sacrifice. Jnana yatna stutyartam prakaranam nasyad. Because in the Jnana Yatna Prakarana, in the final verse of the 33rd verse, he is praising Jnana Yatna as the superior most. That would not have been done if it is Upasana or superimposition on the ladle, etc. Atratu Samyak Darshanam Jnana Yatna Shabditam. But here in this Prakarana, the Jnana Samyak Darshanam, the right knowledge or the true vision, is referred to as the knowledge sacrifice. Jnana Yajna Shabditam. Anekan yatnya shabdajitan kriya visheshan upanyasya. That he has done it at the end of the prakarana, at the 33rd verse, after presenting many ritual actions named as sacrifice. In between, from verse number 25 to verse number 29, he is listing all type of yajnas. Shreyan dravyamadyajnat yajnana yajnah iti jnanam stauti. In the 33rd, he praises knowledge by saying, knowledge sacrifice is superior to all material sacrifice. In the 33rd verse. Atracha samartam idam vachanam brahmarpanam ityadi jnanasya yajnatva sambadane. And this statement that Brahman is offering, brahmarpanam, is appropriate for the establishing knowledge itself as sacrifice. Anyatha sarvasya brahmatve arpanadinam eva visheshatah brahmatva abhidhanam anartakam syat. Otherwise, if everything is Brahman, specifying only the offering, etc. as Brahman would be meaningless. Yetu arpanadishu Vishnu drishtivat Brahma drishti shipyate iti bhruvate. But those who say that the Brahman is merely superimposed, like the idol being superimposed on the offering, etc., just as Vishnu on the idol, na tesham brahma vidya iha vivakshita syat. For them, the knowledge of Brahman intended here would not be conveyed. Arpanadi vishayatvad jnanasya, because their knowledge is limited to the objects or like offering, etc. Nacha drishti sampadana jnanena moksha phalam prapyate. And the liberation cannot be attained by them by such knowledge that merely superimposes a vision. Brahmaiva tena gandavyam iti cha uchyate. But it is also said that Brahman alone is attained by him. Viruddham cha samyak darshanam andarena mokshapalam prapyate iti. And it is contrary to say that liberation is attained without right knowledge. Prakrita virodacha. It also contradicts that context. Samyak darshanam cha prakritam karmanya karmaya pasyet. Because the context is the right knowledge is the topic beginning with the word that he sees inaction in action. Andecha samyak darshanam tasya eva upasamharat. And in the end also, the same right knowledge is concluded in the 33rd verse. Shreyan jnana yatnya jnanam labdva ityadinaha. Through the statements like knowledge sacrifice is the Shrestha or the superior most. And having gained the knowledge, the chapter praises knowledge toward the end. Samyak darshana stutimeva kurvan apakshinaha adhyayaha. This chapter concludes by praising right knowledge alone from the 34th verse to the 43rd verse. It is purely on jnana yajna. Tatra akasmat arpanado brahma drishti anuvapanna. Therefore, suddenly introducing mere symbolic superimposition like an idol on Vishnu-like thing here would be inappropriate. Tasmat yatha vyakyatartha eva ayam shloka. Therefore, the verse must be understood only the way previously explained as a non-dual knowledge. Now he starts with the other verses. Daivam avare yatnyam yoginaha paryupasate brahmagnau vapare yatnyam yatne naiva apajuhvati. 25th verse. What does it say? Daivam eva apare yatnyam. Daivam, divine, pertaining to devatas. Apare, others. yajnam indeed practices yajna. Yoginaha paryupasate. Yogis or practitioners of yoga, they worship, they attend or they serve devotedly the devatas. Brahmagno apare yajnam. Into the fire of Brahman, others do the sacrifice or yajna. Yajnena eva upajuhvati. By yajna, indeed, they offer the sacrifice. So here in this verse, first line is that yajna directed toward devatas, external divine beings. Devam yajnam apare paryupasate yajna. In the second line, Brahmagno yajnam upajihvati yajna, offered into Brahman, the non-dual fire, inward, non-dual yajna oriented. So Brahmagno is the Agni into the fire of Brahman. Identifies this yajna as a direct continuation of the Brahmarpana. Who offers yajna, Brahmagnav, are the jnana nishtas, those who are established in the recognition that the fire receiving their offering is Brahman itself. So Shankara note the progressive elevation from the first to the second line. Daiva yajna, the external orientation, is a vyavaharika duality maintained offering. Whereas Brahma Agni Yajna is an internal orientation, non-dual recognition of the fire not being an external entity by Brahman itself. So Yajnena eva upajihvati. Upajihvati means they pour into oblation by Brahma Yajna. So the offer Yajna here, or one is the people who do the Deva Yajna by thinking in the material way, whereas in those who are doing the Brahma Karma Samadhi or Brahma Yajna, they do the offering as Brahma. So the two lines which are some yogis devoutly attend the Deva Yajna. The others offer Yajna into the Brahman itself is what has been told. So here apare structure, when it is said that the Advaitic inclusivism, Shankaracharya read the repeated apare through the Yajna Vistara of 25 to 30 verses. It is there, yajnas, different yajnas are being explained. The recognition that the single Brahma Yajna admits multiple legitimate approaches corresponding to different adhikaris and their svabhavas, depending upon the candidate. Not all seekers have the eligibility for karma samadhi. The yajna shows that their practice from yajna, that is Deva Yajna to Jnana Yajna, is included in the framework. Therefore, this is almost repeating what he said in the earlier 11th verse. Ye yata mam prabhadyante tan tata eva bhajamyaham. Krishna has said that. Response to each one's approach is made according to his offering. So, the Jnana Vistara is thus the practical elaboration of universal sovereignty of the ye yata mam prabhadyante tam tata eva bhajamyaham. Since all sincere yajna practitioners, however they approach, are participating in the Brahma Yajna and will receive Parameshwara's corresponding
blessings. That is Mama Vartma Anuvartande Manushya Partha Sarvasya. The Deva Yajna is a hierarchy. Shankaracharya's placement of Deva Yajna first in the Yajna Vistara means in the complete picture of different Yajnas. Before Brahma Yajna reflects the Advaitic pedagogical principle of Adhikara Karma, sequential actions. Because Deva Yajna practitioners are at the entry level of the Yajna framework, oriented towards external divine beings working within the Karma Bandhanta. And their Yajna is valid and produces results, but Antavat Phala, definite or finite results. Therefore, the gradation from Deva Yajna to Brahma Yajna is Deva Yajna is in the Karma Kanda external Sakama, whereas the Nishkama Karma Yoga action of Parameshwararpana leads to Brahma Yajna. So, Sakama Yajna, Deva Yajna, Nishkama Karma Yoga is the in-between for those who are into the Chitta Shuddhi practice, and Brahma Yajna for the knowers of the Jnana Yajna, those who are Jivan Muktas. Each step is deepening of the Yajna recognition from the external offering of to the Devas to the divine within through the offering of Parameshwara. That offerer offering fire and or all becomes Brahman at the end. Then he said that Yajnena eva upajihvati, a self-referential structure of Brahma Yajna. The construction Yajnam Yajnena upajihvati contains the deepest Advaitic insight in this commentary. Level 1 is Vyavaharika self-referential. The practitioner, Yajna activities, ritual activities offer Yajna and the fruits and acts, etc. in the practice. A closed, self-sustaining spiritual economy. At the level 2 is the Adhyatmika levels. The sadhaka offers the inner sadhana, japa, dhyana, shravana, all forms of yajna into Brahmagni of Antaryami, the inner Brahman, inward offering towards the inward fire. But he is a sadhaka, not a jnani yet. But at the Paramarthika level, Brahman offers Brahman into Brahman. The apparent jiva who is Brahman offers to the apparent karma, offers the apparent karma in which Brahman into the Brahmagni which is Brahman. Perfect non-dual self-referentiality. Akhanda akara vritti. That is the unbroken recognition and modification of the form of Brahman in all modes. That is the Brahmakara Samadhi, Brahma Karma Samadhi. And this is the fullest expression of Yajnenaiva upajihvati. That means the Yajna is Brahman, of Brahman, into Brahman, from Brahman, and completely self-enclosed in Brahman's non-dual nature. The 24th and 21st verse Yajna Prakarana is in the philosophical frame. As Shankaracharya reads these two as forming philosophical frame for the entire Yajna Prakarana. In the 24th, Brahma Yajna as a philosophical foundation establishes the ultimate Yajna. All elements are Brahman. The destination is Brahman, the means are Brahma Karma Samadhi. Whereas the 25th is the opening of the Yajna Vistara, or the entire ambit of Yajna, establishing the spectrum of Yajnas, starting from the Deva Yajna, the most external, the most Dvaita, to the final Brahma Yajna, the most internal, most Advaitic, showing that all sincere spiritual practice is yajna oriented toward the same ultimate Brahma Karma Samadhi. Together they set up the two poles between the next verse 26 and the penultimate verse 32, which both will enumerate the many forms of yajna in between. Always with the understanding that Brahma Yajna is the ultimate form, towards which all others are oriented and in which all others find their final dissolution. Yajnovai Vishnu, in the Taittiriya Samhita it is there. Shankaracharya refers that in his Bhashya here. Yajna is verily Vishnu. And the Purusha Suktas, Yajnena Yajnamaya Janda Devaha, in the Rig Veda, the Devas are worshipped Yajna with Yajna. In the context of Yajnenaiva Upajihvati, places Brahma Yajna in the cosmic Yajna tradition. So the entire universe of self-offering of Brahman manifesting Srishti and dissolving Pralaya in the perpetual cosmic Yajna. So the creation and dissolution is a cosmic Yajna of Brahman itself. He produces everything from himself and dissolves everything into himself. So he is in a perpetual Yajna into himself. The human Yajni, who performs Yajnenaiva Upajihvati, one who does it in the participates in conclusively in this cosmic Brahman offering. And their Brahma Karma Samadhi is the individual resonance with the universal Purusha Yajna. So even the individual Yajna is part of the cosmic Yajna, because everything is still within the ambit or within the total. Everything is happening inside the Brahman. With this verse, which formally opens the Yajna Vistara, the complete Yajna's treatise, its opening dual contrasts eternal Deva Yajna and internal Brahma Yajna establishes the full range, the Yajna Vistara, of the Prakarana or the treatise. From the most externally oriented sacrifice to Devas to the most internally recognized Brahman as well. This verse maps the spiritual landscape of Yajna, the first line and the second line, and places both of them within the inclusive framework of Mama Vartma Anuvartante Manushya Partha Sarvasha. Now the next few verses will proceed through the remarkable catalogue. Indriya Yajna in the 26th verse, Yoga Yajna in 27, Dravya Yajna Tapas Yajna in the 28th, Pranayama Yajna in the 29th and 30th. Each pair for group representing a different Adhikari's approach to the same Brahma Karma Samadhi. Before culminating statement of the 33rd verse, Shreyan Dravyamayat Yajna Yajna Jnana Yajna, identifying knowledge itself as the supreme Yajna, Jnana Yajna, that is the direct actualization of Brahma Yajna. It's Brahma Yajna's inside that all elements of action are Brahman. And the destination is Brahman, the means is Brahma Karma Samadhina. The Bhashya we will read in the tomorrow's class. And we may not go into the full explanation of the verses from 26 to 32. It is most for the different adhikaris. So we will be reading the verses and explaining the meaning, but not unless there is something which need to be brought out specifically. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyawad.
Thank you very much, Bindoji. I'm opening the chat and hand raising if there's any follow-up questions or discussions.
Namaste Venkat.
Namaste, Prakash. Binduji,
Hmm.
this Vrittikara, that Vishnu Drishti, Brahma Drishti coming in,
Hmm.
this explains a gap where that Samadhi not happened because the Buddhi is still, superimposing,
Hmm.
taking the verse and superimposing.
Hmm.
That, verse 18 talk about Buddhiman, while
Right.
here, in this case, because that culmination into Samadhi not happened, leading to the Vrittikara gap, which is refuted by Shankara very well.
Hmm.
This means that living the truth is not happened. Hence further, that you used the word yesterday, that Sahaja Samadhi,
Right.
that culmination has to happen because the path of yoga also taught by Shankara in the Aparokshanubhuti from verse 100 to I think 129, 15 steps of Raja Yoga,
Right.
where the dimension of karma is not there, but here the complete, bottom-up approach taken by
Hmm.
Krishna here. The approach is little different here. That means that karma samadhi has to happen.
Yes.
Aparoksha is from the Brahma, Brahma karma samadhi. That means jnana and yoga, aparoksha and yoga samadhi both needed for culmination here. Otherwise, that completeness will never emerge. I see this, that samadhi portion is not elaborated. Yet only the gnana has, the aparoksha given no high importance. This kind of path will lead to, Vrittikara, not at let go the buddhi, still lives in imagination of superimposition.
Hmm.
So is this sort of partially covering the landscape? That is my view, Bindoji. I think something is missing here, leading to Vrittikara still having a doubt.
See, what happens is that if you listen to these verses intellectually without the being involved as a listener, when it is being mentioned that the agent of offering is also Brahman, there has to take place a shift of the identity of, somebody doing yajna to I am being part of the cosmic activity of Brahman itself for creation and dissolution. And that attitude, when it comes, it is no more a vritti, but it is a bit a sahaja samadhi. That samadhi is not like a yogic samadhi where there is a vithanam takes place, getting up from the samadhi. Here there is no, that is why the word brahmaiva tena gandavyam. He is dissolving in Brahman himself. That duality is totally getting dissolved. Once that is happening, then there is no vritti separate from Brahmakara vritti. That is why in this today's thing, he mentioned as Akhandakara vritti. That Akhandakara vritti or the Brahmakara vritti is one and the same, where everything is seen as Brahma, and that is Akhanda also. There is no breaking or a separatedness between the offer, the fire, the action, the doer, the agent, and in the fire, etc. That names were maybe appearing different. 6 names are referred, but every name has got an adjective which is called Brahma. Therefore, when you merge all the adjectives together, the individual names have no locus or no independent existence apart from Brahman. Therefore, the vritti, therefore, he also becomes the Brahman. Once the Brahmakara vritti takes place, it is no more a yogic activity, but a jnani's yogi and jnani becomes one and the same. Till then, he has the vritti method, and when he becomes a jnani, the yoga culminates in the vritti. That is why the yogic action also becomes a yajna there. In the pranayama yajna, it will come later in this verse, it will see the indriya yajna. Everything is being offered. So when we go through these each verses yajnas, from the external most pleasing of a divine entity external to your breathing becomes your own yajna. Your living is not you are living for yourself. You are Brahman, and you are being in a state of eternal offering even in your breathing. What you are taking and what you are breathing out is also a yajna. What you are seeing, eating, sleeping, all those actions become yajna. Your sense organs are doing yajna. So that all these becomes a Brahma yajna. That is can happen only when Brahma Karma Samadhi is understood properly. Otherwise, it will become a yoga separate and jnana separate. No, there is no separation between yoga and jnana. They are one and the same.
See, both need to meet somewhere. Just that one dimension may not cover it, because Shankar also did an effort, covering that, Raja Yoga also. He made an attempt in the Aparoksha Anubhuti.
Not only in Aparoksha, even in Brahma Sutra, he is talking about it.
Yeah, it has to culminate. That
Yes.
is, I think we'll wait for the remaining verses on each of the aspect.
Yeah.
That will give a more clarity, definitely. Yes, Vinduji.
After this Yajna Vistara is the Jnana Vistara which is going to come. So Yajna will lead into Jnana.
Sure, Vinduji. We'll continue with the same path, uncovering each of the deeper aspect. Thank you, Vinduji.
Thank you, Venkat. Namaste, Rahul.
Namaste, Bindoji. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Bindoji, my question is regarding the Brahma Yajna thing. So, is it like, are they talking in a poetical sense or something? Like, for example, let's say if I'm watching a TV, I mean, it's just pure entertainment, right? I mean, why it's called some kind of yajna? What is the meaning of yajna in this context?
Yajna in the context here is an appreciation or a dissolving of your separatedness from the entirety of your experiences. In the entirety of their experiences, you have got many objects separate from you, and you are the knower of them or the experiencer of them. So the dichotomy as a subject and object, which is the reason why the duality exists, is merged and dissolved into a unity or non-dual existence, where there is realization-wise the underlying reality of Sat Chit Ananda in the self, the one individual, and the objects outside is not separate Satchitananda. It's only one and the same, that as existence and consciousness. The individual also have existence and consciousness, and every object outside is also having existence and consciousness as their reality. And when this merges, the experience is the awareness in which these things are getting connected. So the yajna is the dissolution of the duality, where there is no separatedness to exist. That offering into a non-dual substratum all the imagined separations, the subject, the object, and the act of experiencing. All the three gets dissolved in the substratum of consciousness or awareness. That is the jnana yajna which is being talked about.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Bindaji.
Thank you, Rahul. Hari Om, Patrick.
Hari Om. So I'm not gonna try to go very far with this, but when you make the statements, yesterday and today, about Brahman, these are declarations about action. I couldn't, that I think the one note that I made was you refer to it as the instrument and agent of action being Brahman. Is this just metaphorical language, or is it just apply to the yajna?
No. It is using yajna language for, now when you watch the next few verses, there the yajna is not talking about the Vedic yajna. It is talking about our experiential yajna. Our experience itself is the yajna.
So how does this sit with you based on our conversation with Srini last week, where my declaration is that all action is Brahman itself?
Yes,
and
that still holds.
But you both denied it and both wouldn't accept it.
No, I didn't deny it. I said there is a third point which you have to see, both you have to see. One, you are holding on to the paramarthic level, whereas Srini was using it from the more of a Vyavaharika level, what is Saguna and the nature of Brahman being as a vivarta of the Nirguna Brahman. But when you have that, you have to understand in the practical aspect, the names and forms have got a relevance. But when the knowledge substantiates that names and forms are nothing but Brahman, then it becomes the Brahma Yajna, where everything is Brahman, which is your statement.
I mean, this is what you said yesterday, is that the Vyavaharika is suspended. And so this was my point about Nirguna, that there's only Nirguna, that there's no suspension of activity. That's Brahman itself. That's Nirguna. It's perceived as Vyavahara, or it's perceived as an action outside of Brahman, but it's Brahman itself.
Yes. It is that is why it is called its appearance, apparent actions, apparent activity, etc.
I'm happy because I knew that this was the case, but I couldn't get you to put it in your language, and now you've put it in the language that everyone can hear. And Srini,
yep.
Okay.
It is not different. Srini also agrees to that.
No. We were talking. I was talking about Spandana and Vrittis, and you both said that that's not Brahman.
See, ignorance is not Brahman.
Spandana is not ignorance, and Vritti is not ignorance. Just because there's a ripple in consciousness, so to speak, doesn't mean it's ignorance.
See, Patrick, understand one thing. If you are saying everything is Brahman, then you will not even use the word vritti or anything, ripple or anything, because that vritti and ripple also become Brahman. then that words has no meaning for you. But for a person where the experiences are being not denied, but knows the reality that is from Brahman's point of view only, but it is being seen. Do you say that you don't have names and forms? You don't accept names and forms? Then there is no talking or nothing. You will become a mauni. You will become a silent person. But the moment you become vocal and articulating, it happens to be separate from
I just
knowledge,
see.
pure.
I just see it differently in the sense that when you said yesterday that there's a suspension. When we speak of name and form, or even if I say name and form is Brahman as well. So you've gotten to the right point in terms of where I was asking you to go.
Srini also said the same thing.
Okay. Anyway, that was wonderful. Yesterday's, I had lots of interruptions and calls, and I had to go to a meeting, but I couldn't continue. But I made the full hour till 9, but it was beautiful. Like it was wonderful. Wonderful.
Did you listen to that replay?
Well, no, I listened to the whole lecture, but I couldn't come in and attack you after, for the question and answer period. And so I didn't listen to the comments, and Srini's been missing, so it hasn't been as much fun.
After holiday, he has come back today.
Yeah.
He has not heard.
He missed all the good stuff. Yeah, he missed all the good stuff.
Yeah, he's going to listen to them now.
Yeah,
later.
He's going to have to redo it. It's going to take him another year for liberation. It's coming maybe next year if he listens to the replay. It'll be tonight. Anyway, it was wonderful, and of course, I'm just having fun, and it was it's all wonderful.
We're all having fun.
I got you to where I want. I knew I was going to get you here, so I feel like it was great, a great accomplishment. Anyway, all in fun.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you so much for a beautiful class.
Thank you, Srini.
Namaste, Vindaji. Thank you for the beautiful session. Yeah, I have some catching up to do. Hopefully, I'll catch up all the classes soon. Yeah, tomorrow also.
Okay. Thank you all. We'll continue the Yajna Prakarana tomorrow, and maybe if required, we'll continue Monday or also. I don't want to rush it, but at the same time, they are all more from the dualistic point of view. But that doesn't mean that going through them will definitely help us to progress and come to the final Brahma Yajna, our own experience. Prakash?
Yes, Bindoji. Very deep manana again today. So, and this will continue, as you mentioned, into verses leading to the different forms of yajna. Thank you very much, as always, and thanks everyone for being in the audience and doing following the meticulous deconstruction of Bhagavad Gita offered by Bindoji. The replays are available in Clubhouse. You can access them in the house, or you could go to the YouTube channel, Advaita Retold. 2 other links are on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And if you want to gently read about Advaita, there's a book published by Artemisia, which is a condensed version of Bindoji's insights leading toward these deeper topics that we are discussing in these rooms. As always, thank you, Bindoji. So we reconvene tomorrow again at 8:30 p.m. IST to continue on the chapter 4. Over to you, Bindoji.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Venkat. Thank you, Patrick and Srini. And thank you all of you, Rahul also, for having asked the questions. We'll convene tomorrow and continue with the further verses. Hari Om. Good night.
Hari Om. Good night.